Well, welcome everyone to Otalku, the show where otaku talk about otaku topics. And today we are covering the big question, the question that has consumed otaku minds for well on 2 decades now. Prejudice against English dubs of anime and the other way around and so forth and so on. And we're gonna hit that topic today and discuss it and hopefully get some thoughts out there. So I'm joined today by Miniman, welcome.
Woo! Woo!
And welcome.
Can't think of a woo for this week. Let's have a different one. How about I'll go for deep? Woo! Okay.
That works.
This week's woo is woo.
and RisingZan as well. Welcome.
Oh yeah!
RisingZan has been replaced by a World Wrestling Federation wrestler.
Yeah.
And we will be, and so we're going to be talking about English dub. Now, one thing before we start into that I want to get clear is that we're not as concerned today about things like people who prefer dubs, prefer subs, generally watch one or the other. That's fine. We're cool with that. The main thing is, and we've all run into these people who are just like, English dubs suck. They all suck.
Smack talk.
Yes, or folks who are like, I only watch English dubs. I just can't watch subs. I've run into a few of those too, which is kind of odd. And I know there are a couple of reasons for that that some folks have, and I kind of wanted to hash that out. I don't know, when you folks have encountered folks like that who have just, an unreasoning hatred for one or the other, what sort of excuses have you heard from people?
I've heard a few. Well, I guess with dubs, because I know a few people who always watch dubs. It's probably because the fact that they have and I'm not trying to be offensive to these people, but they tend to have a low English comprehension, like being able to read and look at the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had the same problem too sometimes. I remember when I first started watching subs online with Naruto, it's just like, there's a word, there's something, and you eventually have to like back up and then like to the part where the line where you were at, and sometimes you get jumbled and
So he says data bio, everything screws up. Believe it. No, I mean, the usual excuses you get for the whole subs thing is usually just the most common one is having trouble reading it whilst watching it. Like, they don't want to be like, especially in action animes, they want to be more concerned with the action.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the most common. I think it's fair if you're watching something like some of the later episodes of Cowboy Bebop. Like, a lot of people for the last 2 episodes, I've seen a lot of people that actually just changed to the dubs just so they could keep up with everything that's going on. But I don't know. Like, I haven't really counted people who aren't willing to try. I mean, I think there's just. I mean, I had it where you just have the teething thing. You start with a
true.
Like I started with dubs, and I gradually teethed into it. It's just that. I mean, I think that the real prejudice just comes from the fact that everyone seems to have this idea that all dubs, English dubs or foreign dubs are crap, and I think that's absolute rubbish. There are some ones which totally surpass. Wait, I mean, I'll give some examples later. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a show. So.
And actually, I wanted to mention that because I remember when I was at Otakon, about 10 years ago, there's a guy there called Scott Frazier, who is now called Jan Scott Frazier. That's a whole other story. And he was talking about Dirty
Miniman
Pair.
12544 has evolved into chocolate spread Miniman 12544.
And he was talking about how he got into anime. And he listened to he watched subs because the only subs were available of Dirty Pair, and he just loved Dirty Pair. They're like his favorite anime. And then he went and he learned Japanese, and he learned like Japanese as in from people who actually speak Japanese, and he understood how Japanese actually sounds in real life. And he got involved in live action and things like that. Then he went back and watched Dirty Pair again, and he realized that the Japanese dub was incredibly cheesy. It was just a really terrible dub. And he couldn't tell until he understood the language. There's some things you can understand without knowing the language. Obviously there's some things. But there's a lot to how a language, is different in different cultures. I've been surprised as I've learned a little bit more about Japanese. There have been shows I've watched where I'm like, that voice is just terrible. It's way too high pitched or whatever. It just doesn't sound right. And I've noticed that there are a few folks who have this view that basically, when you say every Japanese dub is better than the English dub, I'm kind of wondering, how closely are you listening to those voices, or is it just? I think that for a lot of these extreme folks, they're not really listening to the voices in the sense of actually paying attention to those details. They just like the way it sounds.
Mm.
Which is totally
ignorance is bliss.
Right, which is totally fine. It's just, you got to understand that there are different cadences to Japanese, to real Japanese. As I've started watching a lot of live action Japanese stuff, and Japanese does not sound like it sounds in anime. It just doesn't sound the same. So
that's true. I started learning Japanese about half a year ago, and there are very different things. I'd sort of, when I did reviews, I had to change my entire thing of, I think, the voice acting was this good, because actually sometimes the ones I said were worse were actually more realistic and were better for it. It's all confusing, but, when you learn Japanese, it does become annoying that you see these sort of cadences and differences, but I think in the end some people I think in terms of just watching Japanese dub, I think just some people want to A, see it earlier, and B, just see it in its original form. I think, like most reviewers that I know, I know a reviewer who does just go for the dubs, and actually we think his reviews are funny because he admits the whole, I just go for the dubs, who cares, thing about it, but there's that entire sort of thing of just, if you're going to judge an anime, you have to judge it on its original ideas, and I don't fully believe that. I do think that dubs can change things, and I'm quite glad that they can have the power that they do, but,
And that's a very good point. One thing that a lot of folks get frustrated with is when the American or UK or whatever company who licenses it comes in and it's not quote unquote exactly faithful to the original one. But my kind of response to that is, this is collaborative art. The original version was talked over by a lot of folks, and sometimes when that comes over, the American company or UK company, whatever, can look at that and say, we have a better choice. There was a great example with Crispin Freeman, where he had...
I'm a big fan of Crispin Freeman.
Oh, he's great. With the Dot Hack OVA. There's a scene where his character, who's this very serious adult character, and he's probably 10 or 15 years older than the other characters, he's kind of reserved and so forth. And he comes to this party where sort of all the characters from all the different Dot Hacks are all in this same room together. And he walks in, and in the original Japanese, he says something like, well, this is a fine party. And in Japanese, that comes across as very stiff. But translated into English, it just comes across as, well, this is a fine party. And Crispin Freeman said, he looked at that and said, oh, we can do better than that. And he looked at the lip flaps. He said, okay, I got it, roll it. And he comes in and goes, this shindig is the bomb diggity. and exactly, that gets across exactly what it needs to in our language. But it's something where, you have to look at it and understand, okay, here's what what that is, and they didn't,
especially in things like jokes, it totally works out with a sense of humour. Anyone ever seen the Lucky Star dub, episode 6 or something? What was it in Japanese? Timote, 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 and then she goes, that was the reaction I wanted, and it's kind of like, you would sort of say that. I wonder what they do in the dub. Timote, Timote, and Timote. Yeah, I've seen that. Bitchin', that was awesome! Bitchin'!
And that's the thing is, you got to figure out the thing that works. And sometimes, people are creative and they can come up with a way to make something work. And actually that brings it, somebody was mentioning the question of accuracy between the two.
I've never thought that it's needed, the accuracy thing. I think whatever. ADR script writers are surprisingly good.
It's true.
Yes.
Like they like the best ones take what makes a series great and really adapt it to the culture well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably the best example of that is the Haruhi dub. I mean, if you look at the example in episode 2, you got Yuki Nagato's extremely famous 10-minute speech, which is a great scene. In Japanese, it's very different in translation to the English one, but it's because it actually makes sense with what science we know and what technology we have. Like, she talks about different technology and science in the Japanese dub, and in the English dub it does it in a way of what will still sound pretentious and like, you shouldn't be able to understand it unless you're really clever, but still work with our culture. And so in the Japanese it's more about technology, in English it's more about physics and time space and stuff. And it makes more sense with how we do storytelling. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One example I'll bring to this subject is in I'm bringing this up again in Gurren Lagann, the English dub.
Gurren Lagann.
I know. This actually surprised me. When I watched Gurren Lagann, it was English dub original while it was put on Sci-Fi, and of course I loved it. I noticed nothing wrong, except with episode 6, which is, if you remember the Hot Spring episode.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, never mind. Anyway, so the Hot Spring episode, and it seems to be just a typical clip show. However, in the Japanese version, I was surprised after I bought the DVDs and watched this. Episode 6 is completely different. It's not a clip show. It's, it's like a standard episode of Gurren Lagann. It feels much more natural than the English episode 6 was, and the English episode 6 was clearly changed, and the reason for that was because there was a little bit of an ecchi scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Still, like, even on the English DVDs, this still hasn't changed. They still don't have like an uncut version of the actual thing. It's still that boring clip show.
That's odd, because when I've seen that version on DVD, there weren't any clip shows.
It was on episode 6.
Yeah.
It was a clip show from the beginning, and basically Carmen and Simone were commentating on the back behind it.
That's not on my DVD.
Well, it's not like a full episode of a clip show, but it's they're in the hot spring and they're like contemplating, and then like scenes are cut out.
I don't recall that in my DVD version. There's no Kamina and Simone talking over those things, talking over clips in my version that I can recall. I don't know. Actually, I want to bring up something that's been talking about in the chat room here, is pronunciation. It's one thing I kind of don't quite get. If the English translation pronounces them differently, so what?
What was that?
Well, okay, I'm going to bring up another example. STF Macross.
Yeah.
Hikaru, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to go meet the Colonel. Hikaru, there you are, you old boy. I think that's a perfect example, because the different voice actors have different ways of saying it, and I don't think they ever put the message across from each other. That's what I noticed with the SDF Macross stuff. Everyone who speaks English says Hikaru, while Minmay says Hikaru.
Yeah. And that's one of the... Well, Darky brings up, Giga Drill Breaker versus Giga Drill Break. Okay. And literally, I mean, I'm saying this because I don't understand why that kind of change is so problematic.
I mean, it's only fair when, like, the pronunciation of something screws up with a joke. I mean, I think the most famous one that I know of is the One Piece dub, which whoever the Saw guy, Zoro, whatever you want to call him, everyone calls it differently, but he on the thing, the joke is that his move is called, well, translated in English is Demon Slash, and that's only Gilly. And so the joke is he goes, Oni Gilly, and everyone goes, what? rice balls. What are you getting? And whilst in the dub, which is one of my favourite things, Demon Slash. What, rice balls? What? Never mentioned rice ball.
Yeah.
It's stupid things like that where they don't change it, where people hate it. I think really everyone just. I think the hate started with 4Kids, and I'm very angry that the hate started with 4Kids, because I think 4Kids, I hate them, but they did something brilliant, and they made me otaku. They made most of us otaku, because without that background knowledge of Pokemon and all that sort of crap, we wouldn't be watching it today.
Yeah, as we've said in previous episodes, we need a company like 4Kids around to bring those anime to the masses, because that's just, that's how we get the next generation.
4Kids, please dub Lil Pre, Jesus.
And that's the thing, is that, I'm sorry, if 4Kids had not brought over Pokemon, it would not have been brought over. No one was going to license all 9,000 episodes of Pokemon, and bring it over, 4 episodes each.
That always surprised me.
Yeah, and apparently Doraemon has the same problem. There's so many episodes, no one's willing to commit to it, because, if they bring it over and stop, they're going to be the devil.
Right.
So they got to commit to bringing over, 8 bazillion episodes, and it's hard to find someone who can do that. I'd love to see Doraemon brought over. I absolutely agree.
Well, the problem is, you say, if they bring it over and stop, they'll be the devil, but let's look at what happened with Tokyo Mew Mew. I mean, Mew Mew Power, they called it Mew Mew Power in the 4Kids version, and especially in England, it's probably we have this channel called Pop Girl, and it's one of the most famous things on there. A lot of people just watch it for it, and there's only about 60 episodes. And everyone was like, but yet, while Mew Mew Power grossed that much money, so much, they stopped making it after the first series. Why? Because something happens in the second series, and it involves a death, and that's out of 4Kids territory.
Yeah.
And it almost annoys me that actually that 4Kids just aren't willing to go.
Yeah.
Aren't willing to at least branch out a bit. Yeah, you're 4Kids, but the whole point of the reason that Mew Mew Power worked so much is because it was done in 2-week slots rather than 1 week, because it was done every other week. And so, because there's so much time, it gradually actually grew up. It started kiddie, and it actually sort of gradually became more mature.
Right.
And it always surprises me that they just don't dare at all. I mean, look at Funimation. They started off innocent, and now they're simulcasting freezing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, 4Kids is definitely the totally conservative company. They're going to bring over something that will make them money, unless everything goes, completely wrong. You're right. It's absolutely, it's really unfortunate, because that's where we see the problem with 4Kids. That's exactly why they are struggling so much financially, because they haven't taken risks, and the safe stuff, we've had a shift, and it's a problem. But getting back to the sub dub thing, and 4Kids is a great example, because they're they do these really cheesy dubs. But
I enjoy the cheesy dubs. I think they're hilarious.
I agree. I mean, and that's actually part of the issue too. Is I think a lot of folks, they hear a dub that annoys them on some level, or just has something, and they go insane.
These are the people who complained Endless 8, one of the greatest experiments ever. I loved it. Everyone's just like, Endless 8 was horrible. I was just like, Endless 8 was like the best episodes of Harry. All
I agree. I agree. And
at least one company decided, let's do this. Let's just give a middle finger to everyone, see what they say. Brilliant experiment, brilliant idea, and yet all of these dubbing companies don't seem to embrace that.
Yeah,
it's really annoying. They just don't embrace the. I think the thing is, again, that most of these companies are run by. They're not run by otaku. They're run by corporate people who want to make money, and it's annoying that there isn't that one, because the thing about it is they don't actually see the charm in anime, and that's the ironic thing. These dubbing companies don't see the charm. There is a charm to anime which these dubbing companies don't always convey, and that's where most of the complaints come from. And
it's a big thing. I mean, and part of it is like Funimation is a good example where they're all fans. All you need to do is watch one of their behind the scenes videos to understand they're all fans.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they all recognize this stuff has to sell to work, and for us to be able to do more of this stuff. So they're constantly balancing that. And it is, it's a balancing act. It's something where, you can't just say, this is, you can't be Funimation and do what Right Stuff does, where they say, we love His and Her Circumstances, no one else has licensed it, so we are going to pool enough money to bring this out, we're going to do it perfectly, and we're going to do, one of these every 2 or 3 years. Because that's the only way we can afford to do it and to stay in business. That works great for them, but
if we look at companies, for example, Funimation, they didn't bring out Phantom to the OK because they realised that there was one lonely man sitting on ONV who pre-ordered it. Just one man. They couldn't afford the licensing costs for that 40 quid. Funimation? I will get you for that. I want that eye necklace now. Getting the special edition.
Yeah. So a lot of it is sort of it's a business. It's a business thing.
There's clearly too much hate against 4Kids. There clearly is too much hate to their theme songs, which is just ridiculous. Don't hate on a theme song. Ridiculous. One thing they say 4Kids needs to think about what they did in the timeout corner is what they did with One Piece. What they did with One Piece was was so over the top to the point of being racist, and it was just ridiculous. And not only that, but One Piece was the next generation of shonen. Like after Dragon Ball Z was aired and dubbed and on Cartoon Network's Toonami, One Piece was supposed to take his place. His 4Kids stuff, and they went way too far. They went too far, especially a show where there's no on-screen death for the first 300 chapters. Yeah.
And I think actually One Piece is a good example of a show that's just not right for 4Kids. 4Kids makes their stuff for 8-year-olds.
And One Piece the fact how much they have to edit things out.
Right.
There's the extremely famous case of the Smoke Man. He smokes a lot in the dub, not in the sub, and so when we go to our good old dub, how they edited it, he has a lollipop, but there's smoke still coming out.
I actually have an interesting story on that. There's this theory that went around. If any of you ever saw Tenchi on Cartoon Network, back when
it's 10 minutes of it once.
They aired pretty much all of it actually on Cartoon Network. Well, the OVA has a lot of nudity. And so what they did is they went back and they said basically we're going to add basically bras and panties and swimsuits and so forth over the characters in those scenes, just so we can air it,
How many years did that take to do?
And the interesting thing though is that there are shots where they missed frames. Where they're covered until the last couple of frames, and this happens several times. And there's this theory went around that people think possibly that was deliberate, that they were making it not match up to show people that this was something they had to do to get it on air. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it was a very interesting sort of theory that. Maybe they were messing it up to show folks that there was something else going on. I doubt that's what was going on with One Piece. But it was kind of interesting.
4Kids choosing One Piece to go was like 4Kids choosing Dokuro-chan. It was just never going to work.
Exactly.
We all want to see it, but I want to see what 4Kids could do to Dokuro-chan. That'd be hilarious. Just I think just stop him just about being hit, and you just get a little bruise.
Actually, have you seen the fake trailer for Akira done by 4Kids?
No.
It was a cartoon trailer that was basically completely fake. It was just like so ridiculous.
Nice.
I've seen.
Yeah.
And somebody in the chat room brings up the fact that he's called Zorro over in Japan. They cannot.
Zolo, they both sound cool to me.
Well, here's the thing.
RL thing. There is no L in Japanese.
Yeah. I know.
But here's the thing.
Chocolatto.
Here's the thing. I mean, yes, it's the same letter. They would need to license Zorro and get, they would need to pay the folks who have Zorro every time they use that name.
That's what I thought too.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of weirded out by, because when I heard that Zolo's real name was Zorro, I'm like, you mean the Spanish guy?
Go ahead.
There's just really no problem with Zorro being called Zolo. I have no problem with that whatsoever, because Zolo sounds cool. Roar Nora Zolo. What's wrong with Zolo? There's nothing wrong with Zolo. What a problem? Other than it's not the actual name.
Although I would like to just quickly thank 4Kids for making YouTube very funny for me. Because you could search up any anime if it was done by 4Kids. You get some brilliant ones. Death Note, he just walks outside. Disappear Note. My favourite one has to be the Elfen Lied, but done by 4Kids though. It's literally just, oh dog, I hope we can be together forever. And it just goes, and they did.
That is awesome.
I almost wish that was the case. That friggin' thing. When you watch that scene that comes later in the series at 13, that traumatizes you, I can tell you now. You should not be watching Elfen Lied at 13, it's a very bad idea.
If I were 4Kids...
That was my first ever anime, and it was such a bad thing. Like, I enjoy it, and I love it. And when I went back to it recently, it's now one of my favourite animes of all time. When the first ever anime you see after one episode of Bleach was Elfen Lied, at 13, that's a very, very bad choice to start on. You have to be ready for that one.
So it's there's and that's actually a great example of the issues with translation. Something else I wanted to bring up here is how fan subs translate things and how the fans translate things versus how the companies translate things. One of the things that really has gotten to me recently is how fan subbers don't translate a lot of words in these anime. They leave a lot of Japanese in there, and sometimes they'll even add extra stuff up, to the top, explaining what the Japanese word is. It's like, your job is to translate, not part of the sentence. Your job is to translate the sentence.
Half of these dubs might as well just be a thing saying a book on how to translate. First of all, you got to do this, and then just make you translate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing that I'll notice, this is for manga translations, is that first chapter where there's like this big evil corporation is introduced, it has a really cool English name. Then the next chapter they decide, you know what, let's just go with the original Japanese name, because subbers are going to complain. It's like, okay, now we're calling it the, Tokoban no Nana.
But the Lost Deserters of Warhelm sounded so much better.
Yeah, instead of the Oricron 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just weird. That's here's one thing that I noticed about translations, is that people who do fan translations love to use the word fuck a lot.
True.
And here's the thing. Japanese
don't have damn/disappointment. Not fuck.
Yeah.
It's like on Bleach. Kusur, kusur, kusur. It's just like, no, he's not swearing. He's saying damn.
Right.
There's a difference. It's rude, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, Kusu's more of like a grunt, because here's the thing, Japanese don't really have swear words. Even urusai, which is usually translated into shut up, just means you're annoying. That's all it means. It just means you're annoying.
Yeah.
My sensei taught me this. Japanese do not have any real swear words.
True.
Even baka just means...
my sensei taught me that as well.
Yeah, baka just means you don't know. It doesn't really mean idiot. It could imply that, but it just means you don't know, baka.
And Apo is just another way of saying baka in a sort of more light-hearted kiddie way.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that gets back to the whole translation issue, is that when somebody's saying, and we've all seen this, where, actually Wandering Son's a great example, where, the boy's dressed up in his sister's outfit, and she comes in and sees him that and gets offended, and he says "baka" and runs out. If he's calling her idiot, that doesn't make any sense. When he's saying you don't understand, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. I know several great. I think probably the best example of that. Like I've seen some very good subs, and I think I'd like to kudos to whoever did the sub I watched of Bangaku Shoujo, because they nailed it. I mean, they really got the translation right, and they did put information at the top. So when they put when it said Baka, they put idiot. They said in certain scenes we will translate this as you don't understand in its proper context.
Yeah,
and also on the scenes where the guy falls in love and she doesn't get it, and she goes back and says you don't understand. I was like, well done.
There we are.
You're a good subber. Congratulations. I mean,
you translated. Thank you.
Dun, 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 dun. The best subbers are the ones who translate in context.
Yeah.
And we're running out of them fast.
We are.
Good subbers.
Yeah. We are. And part of that too is speed. Folks are so prioritizing speed of fan subbing that they will take the first one that comes along, and they're the ones who are just ramming through and translating as fast as possible and not really, paying attention to those complexities.
That's why I was very glad that the Haruhi, the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya subs, the ones on the site. So I went to, they came out 4 days after it, and when everyone complains, they just put, well, do you want it accurate or not?
Yeah.
Because they said they could have done it in 1 day, but we didn't want it. We want to make sure we're getting right here, because, it's a very text-heavy that you got to make sure it's...
Yeah. My favorite example of that is on Kadocha, where there's a fan sub where there's a scene where one of the kids is dealing with oh boy, this is going to take forever to explain, but basically a kid is kind of interrogating an adult about his relationship with the main girl in the series, and there's this question as to he's hanging around her a lot, and they kind of make jokes about him being her pimp, and he's it's just a joke, and the kid is like, are you or not? And the guy says basically, I'm not, and the kid says, well, then why are you not saying anything about these jokes? And he gets up, and the boy gets up and starts to walk away, and he turns around and says, you really shouldn't screw with kids. And it's
please don't tell me someone took out the width. You really shouldn't screw kids.
Well, and that's the thing, is that it was this perfect double entendre that you okay, I know where he's going with that, and it was just a perfect way of saying it. I mean, the boy's like 12 years old, so it was exactly the way of getting across what he's trying to say in there without trying to get across the complexity. And Zan, I'm so glad you brought up that point about Japanese not having a
swear word,
not having swear words. That's a very cultural thing. You don't do that.
Yeah, there's a reason why in Stocking Penny says "shit, fuck." There's a reason for that.
Yeah, really. Everyone's just like, why is she swearing in English? Because she can't swear in Japanese.
Yeah. The closest you can get to swearing in Japanese is. The closest you can get to swearing in Japanese is just, which is the grunts. That's all it is, the grunts. Good. That's all it is, the grunts. That's all it is.
I love it.
Ike! Which apparently I found out was Yakuza language.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
First day of Japanese class, I said, "Hey, sensei, what does Ike mean?" Oh, that's what Yakuza used to. They tell their underlings to go get a yakisoba roll. Ike.
Well, like Pew's idea, Japanese swears come from dragon sounds.
I agree. Nice. All right, well, we've actually covered pretty much everything I had in my notes. Do you guys have anything else?
It's time to randomly extend this. Let's do this, British power. Okay. No, damn.
I can think of a few things now that I'm looking at my manga collection on my shelf. Speaking with fast subs, there was one just ridiculously bad fast sub with the first episode of the Bakuman anime. And it was so pitiful. Just like half the language, almost all of the translations weren't grammatically correct. Not Japanese grammatically, just English grammatically correct. Most of it was just like really stupid leet speak, like not even like actual leet speak, just like Juice One Two makes manga. So Holmes now, just pitifully. I just could say comically bad, but when you're waiting for that first episode and this is what you get in the morning, you're gonna get pissed off.
Yeah. No kidding.
The best sub I've ever seen was so wrong, but that was the joke. Basically, there's this. Well, I was going to say there's this anime called Queen's Blade. We all know it.
Yeah.
Basically, now there's pretty much two subs to Queen's Blade. The one which some guy bothered to make it right, and then there's one which he called the company Warning Subs. And the reason
I watched that
was
version.
Because what he did, I can't remember. Well, I think it was something like Warning Subs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they took it down or not. But what he did is, instead of translating it, for everything they said, he pointed out the problems in the entire series, and he pointed out the cheesiness. He pointed out that, and it's just like it's really funny. So one of the sentences of "You dare to fight me in that outfit," he just translated into I
wish I saw that. I just saw the real one, and I got bored quick.
No, seriously.
God,
I saw the real one. I was like, no. And I saw this one, and I was crying, laughing. he had such good points. And then translator's notes. Yeah, I'm being a bit of a dick, but let's face it, you're enjoying this.
That is about the only way I would watch Queen's Blade, actually. I would watch
the entire series in fail subs. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I would love to watch that version. I don't know what that version is, though.
If I can ever find it again. Because it was ages ago, but it was so good.
Oh, nice.
Like, oh, God. It sounds like it is,
yeah. Retro Ali comes with a good point about the whole dubs things.
Yeah.
Done right. I mean, let's look at Ghibli dubs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite surprised we forgot to mention that, because that actually is a good example of why dubs don't need to be hated as much as they do.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, the Ghibli dubs are kind of amazing, considering the fact that Disney could have just, slapped a dub on there and thrown them out. They didn't have to spend a lot of time getting that really, really good. And they're hiring folks from within Disney and their various companies. So it's not like they're just saying, let's go get somebody random. They're trying to use their talent and use them well.
I mean, you can definitely see a difference between the Disney dubs and the Pixar dubs.
Sure.
Because the Pixar dubs definitely, I always think the Pixar dubs probably just get it a bit more. Disney dubs try and give it sort of the Disney dubbing treatment that they would for a normal cartoon, while Pixar dubs sort of get it. But I've always liked the idea of the whole sort of that Disney gave Pixar the rights to the studio to allow them to use Disney's stuff for these voice actors, and because they realised that Pixar could probably do it well. I mean, I've often thought that actually in some cases of Ghibli films, some people complain about me for saying this, but I think that in some Ghibli films the cases are that the dubs are better. I mean, if we look at Spirited Away, for example, the Japanese dub of Chihiro is done by a pretty generic girl voice actor, and she's all right. If we look at the English dub, it's done by DeVay Chase, Lilo from Lilo and Stitch, and she's one of my favourite young voice actors. She's brilliant. She's incredible in that.
And actually, I wanted to bring up Princess Mononoke. San's voice actress in Japanese is quite muted, even by Japanese standards. And I thought, I forget who does San's voice in the American version, but she really brings this edge and this intensity to the voice that's not there in the original. And that's an acting choice. But I really preferred that idea of an angry San as opposed to this more almost Rei Ayanami San. As we're saying, I think they're making good choices with using, mostly internal Disney and Buena Vista actors.
Look at all the ADR dub things I talk about. It's often that the voice actors have almost more choice in the characters than they do. I mean, in the case of Spirited Away, whoever plays Yubaba the witch, she said that she watched the original dub and found that the Yubaba had a more soft voice, and then the Nan character from later on in the film had a sort of rougher voice, and she reversed that, saying that she thought it felt the characters more. And I actually agree. I always didn't like that Yubaba's voice was softer. I think it worked well grunted.
Agreed. Absolutely. And I also go ahead, Sam.
Oh, yeah, thank you. There's one, I know you guys are praising the English dub Miyazaki movies, but I have one problem, one voice in one Miyazaki movie, and that's in Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. I don't remember the character's name. It's basically the guy who's he eventually becomes friends with Nausicaa, and he becomes friends with Nausicaa. It's the guy and travels with Nausicaa halfway through the movie.
Yeah,
that guy in the English dub is voiced by Shia LaBeouf.
He's fine. I thought he was fine.
I haven't seen it, but just when you say Shia LaBeouf to me, it just makes you think of Transformers and how much Michael Bay ruined it. The problem is, if everyone ever wonders why nerds get angry over the Transformers film, it wasn't produced by Hasbro and it's not in the Transformers mythos. It's all a lie. Yeah. Transformers War for Cybertron, the game, is not a lie.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't have a problem with him exactly, but here's the thing. Before I watched the dub, I watched the sub.
Yeah.
And I felt in that character's voice, I can't remember the character's name, that I felt, that he actually felt really angry, and he had, this mixture of emotions about his town being destroyed. What's going on? What the hell's going on? Shia LaBeouf, I didn't feel like that. Yeah, he didn't do anything bad, but he didn't portray the character enough. He just, read the lines and emoted, but he didn't really gave me that character though.
I'll agree with you there. He definitely was not. He didn't really have all the intensity, and that character is a very intense character for better or worse. I mean, he can be a bit too much. And some folks push back on that, but I totally agree. I mean that is his character, and the book's version is just didn't really quite work.
I know,
fully. But I mean,
I know this isn't quite anime. It's more gamey, but it's It's still about dubs. But I do enjoy it though when each country definitely has its own individual thing for a character. I mean, one of the best examples ever is that game Vanquish. Okay, the main guy, Japanese dub, he's pretty laid back, and he's sort of got this kind of I'm calm in situations about it. In the American dub, he's got this almost sort of grunt to him that he sort of almost seems sort of war torn, and he has this. And then if we look at other dubs, the French dub is the greatest thing ever because in the English and in the Japanese dub, he has this still calmness through the situation to him. In the French dub,
and actually, Lola brings up the question of emotion, and whether you feel more emotion in one or the other. Actually, that's the thing, is that I feel a lot of Japanese dubs are incorrectly emotional. A lot of Japanese dubs they overact.
I think that's one of the sort of common traits, as it were, of anime.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally think, do you think someone's emotional? It really depends on the context that it comes. For example, I think that, if we take the same sort of dubbing company, Howl's Moving Castle, I think that was more emotional in the English one, especially towards the end.
Definitely.
Whilst if we look at Grave of the Fireflies, it works much better in the Japanese one. I mean, in the end, it's almost to do with the narrative, and the narrative really almost depends on how things are done, because when they don't exaggerate everything, sometimes actually the Japanese one is far superior.
Absolutely. And Grave of the Fireflies is a good one to bring up, because one of the problems with that is it being such a Japanese thing. them being very careful about how the Japanese, sound, how the Japanese voices sounded is something that you almost can't replicate in English. Because it's just such a Japanese thing, and it's about how people would actually act in that situation.
Well, it always annoys me when in a dub they try and still keep a Japanese accent. That's always annoyed me. I think if you're going to dub, go the full way. Yeah. I mean, it's fair in something like Phantom, in the Phantom dub, where they sort of keep traits because, they say, I am from this country because it's all about different people from different countries.
Yeah.
Apart from the main two characters, which is very odd, because Ain is from Mongolia and Spy's from Japan, and in the Japanese you can totally hear that they have the accents. And in the English dub, for some reason, everyone else has their prescribed accent, and then these two main characters are just really typical Americans. It's just like, no, Spy is Japanese. He says it in the first minute of the whole anime. Don't give him a typical "Who am I?" accent.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the interesting. I've heard some voice actors talk about that and how one of the problems that they have with it. I totally agree with you. I prefer having the accent. I've heard some folks say that one of the problems is with the main voice actors. They can't maintain that accent for that long, but for the more minor characters, they can.
I always thought that the best sort of mix of the two is Cowboy Bebop because it keeps the culture up, but it sort of because it definitely gives like people like Spike a more American accent, but it sort of takes what inspired the character and does it in a different context, and I enjoy that because Spike's cool, collective, calm, and just emotional enough about in the right situations, and. At least they brought that to the dub. They didn't do a typical thing in which they just dubbed it.
Yeah. I mean, they found someone who fit Spike exactly, and who also, understood the character well enough. Actually, it's funny. I remember watching in one of the at a convention somewhere. Somebody asked, "Who does Spike?" It's. I should remember this.
Steve Bloom.
Steve Bloom, thank you. Someone asked him. I'm embarrassed now. Someone asked him, "Did you ever have a role that you weren't sure you wanted to take?" And he said, "Actually, that would probably be Spike, because I wasn't." He said, "Honestly, I'm not like Spike in real life. I'm pretty happy-go-lucky, so I didn't know that I could actually play that kind of, that character with a dark past and have that grit to him." And I give him total credit for the fact that he wasn't sure about that, and so he approached the character with that level of seriousness of saying, I need to find that place in myself. And it's something that, obviously a lot of actors try to do, but it's something that, only a few can do, which is, amazing, especially coming from someone like Steve Bloom, who has no formal training. He's not an actor. He came into it.
One of my favourite dubs of all time, I've never been sure. Is there a Japanese version of Afro Samurai?
Yes, I believe so.
Because Samuel Jackson is just he's like you could they made him for that role and that's why it worked. and the weirdest thing is though that you sort of as you're watching it goes, this doesn't work, but this works. And it's just like it's just like Samuel Jackson's voice acting. This shouldn't be happening right now, but this is cool.
The funny thing is, you hear Samuel Jackson's voice more from the ninja sidekick than the actual main character.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Very, very strange.
It's
two quick examples I just thought of voice acting that's kind of, I thought was meh. One was from the Fist of the North Star game that just got released recently.
That was an awful game.
I actually I wouldn't mind playing it because I like anime games. Anyway,
fine. It's good if you like Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, so I'm just watching the opening cutscene, and Kenshiro, water, and then oh man, I need to read more Fist of the North Star because the kid's voice is played by the same voice actor as Joey Neutron, and I'm sorry, but he uses the same exact voice as Joey Neutron as well. Just grinding because I actually like that character, and anyway, better example, though, is Orin Host Club. I will always prefer the dub, and this is the reason. My favorite character is Tamaki. I like how he's developed. And in the Japanese dub, he sounds like he's trying to be a snobby Westerner throughout the whole dub. And I know he's supposed to be some sort of, like, really popular voice actor in Japan. Very popular.
He's half French as well, in the story. He's half French.
I know that much, but the thing is, like, in the Japanese dub, he portrays like, oh, I'm a French, I'm a rich man. Like, it's very snobby and all that. While with Vic Mignogna voice acts, he's very more like he doesn't really care about money, and he's more like just like you know, he does have higher standing, but he's not going to rub it in your face, and that's more Tamaki's character right there. Like you never have Tamaki like rub it in anyone's face that he's rich, never.
And that's one of the
because part of his backstory is the fact that he doesn't want to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's it's one of the...
He's just... okay, I've lost my words, damn it!
It's one of the interesting things about English dubbing is that they have the advantage of time and perspective. You know, they can go back and watch the entire thing and see that character progression and say, oh, that's where he's going. With the original voice actor may not have known that when they were doing it.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, that's you know, nothing against the Japanese version. Sometimes just, you know, you can look at it and say, okay, oh, that's the character. And also sometimes, you know, similarly, you know, the English voice actor, like with Vic Mignogna, he wasn't sure how to play that character. He initially was, and then someone came in and explained, this is it. He's like, oh, gotcha. And sometimes you can, you know, you can get that understand that core nugget of a character. That you can't when you're in the middle of dubbing a show and it's still in the middle of production and they don't know how it's going to end and they don't know where they're going to end the storyline and so forth. It's a different world.
It almost makes me have hope if they dub Angel Beats.
Yeah, true.
Because Angel Beats is a total prime example of that.
Yeah.
By 100%. I mean, if we look at our main character, I forgot their name.
Yeah.
I don't really... I just call her Harry. If we look at Harry.
Yeah.
You know, you see that in she is the world's most schizophrenic, multiple personality disordered voice ever. Yuri, thank you, Leather Champ.
Yes, Yuri-Bei.
Yuri-Bei. Because if we look at the first episode, she sort of has this grunt to her. And if you look at the second episode where she reveals her past, you're like, oh, okay, you know, she has some real emotional context there. And she keeps this sort of stubbornness, this very subtle but very well played out stubbornness. Yeah. And then the last episode comes. And then she has a higher voice. She is a nice person now. She is just like, no! You're supposed to... you're going to be, you know... But, it always annoys me that there's not at least a bit of hate for Angel in the end. Still have that bit of, you know... If we were friends, that could be a thing. But Otanashi, he played it out well. Well done, lad. You did well who played him. He was amazing in that.
Damn straight.
Absolutely. You know, you do have that advantage. I mean, I'd be curious to see how the dub of Durarara is. You know, because there's a show where I'm sure the voice actors are looking at that saying, what the hell am I doing? You know, but now that we can actually look at the entire thing, you have a better feel. I mean, I haven't listened to the Bakano dub, but that's a good example of a show where, oh my gosh, I mean, I don't know how you could understand that show without watching it all the way through. You know, because those characters, there's stuff revealed about some of those characters in the last episode. And also, it's something that a lot of folks don't understand, is that in Japan, the way they dub things is they go in during production on the show when they've assembled basically all of the keyframes. So they'll have a video monitor up there with just the pencil drawings, basically, some of the ink drawings up there, kind of timed. And they'll bring in the entire cast, and they will, there's a big room with some microphones, and folks will walk up and speak their lines in time with the dialogue, and they'll do an entire scene all together that way.
Yep.
Adventures in Voice Acting, a very good documentary about that.
Absolutely. And in America, just because of the way everything works, they hire everyone separately and dub everyone separately. So they'll bring you in, and unfortunately, a lot of the time they'll bring you in, especially for a cheaper show. They'll bring you in and say, okay, here's the character, here's what you're doing. You know, you'll you'll try out some lines and so forth, and you'll get a part, and they won't tell you much of anything. They'll just tell you to start dubbing. So you kind of just got to start running with it. Run with it. It's one of the reasons why I think that Vic was able to do so well with Tamaki, because he'd seen Oran beforehand. He's able to really grasp that character. But for a lot of these voice actors in America or anywhere else, it's just, okay, here's this fun character. Give me a fun voice. Okay, great, here's his first line.
That's why I'm a huge fan of fan dubs. I think fan dubs, because the fan dubs where they do it like immediately the episode goes by, they're not good. The fan dubs that wait until the series is ended, get an ADR writer and just do it gradually, they're the best. I still think they're the best. I mean, maybe I'm just saying that because I'm trying to doing a fan dub with a friend of mine myself. I'm playing Brief, and Penny's talking about that. That's gonna be amazing. Nice. Still working on that. I usually just drink shitloads of water before.
It'll take some work. I'm also doing some abridging, and I've been to work with my partner, Seda887, and he's been working on his Simone voice. Surprisingly, that's the one he's having the most trouble. He's younger than me. He's in high school. Kind of going through puberty, but he's trying to get that high voice and trying to keep it natural. But let me just give everyone out there who wants to be a voice actor or an actor in general a piece of advice. If you're going to go in for an audition, research.
The most annoying. Oh wait, you keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, I went in for a audition for the play of Dracula, Bram Stoker's. And I knew jack about most of the characters. I just knew the Dracula stories, and I was given the audition part of Van Helsing. And the only thing I thought of Van Helsing was that one action movie with the vampire.
Wow.
It's not Van Helsing at all. He wasn't just some vampire hunter. I'm like, oh. Well, I'm not getting the part on night. No, you're not. Okay.
There's this great anecdote which happened while the anime executive was still going, and always proves how prominent you can tell how bad a dub is in front of everything else. Because we did a whole video on this. It was a rather famous anime executive story in which we were going to go review Angel Beats, and so my friend Raj, who was Ashlinks, couldn't for the life of him remember like it was like we were about a few episodes in and we're getting ready to review. So we told him, watch Angel Beats. The talking persons, you should probably get watching it because it's pretty good. And so he sort of, he waited a couple of days and he sort of forgot the name-ish. And we another time online check, so we just put Angel Beat. And he came up with Beat Angel Escalator. And what he did is he said English dub, one episode. He went, it was that popular already. Didn't know this. And the funniest thing is that, and anyone doesn't know, Beat Angel Escalator is a hentai.
Yeah.
He didn't realise this. And he clicks on it. And here comes this first scene, which he described as not worth seeing in his eyes. But then when he came back, when he came back and told me, I just said, "Do you have any comments?" And he just went, "The dubbing was terrible." He didn't mention anything else. He just said, "Dubbing wasn't great, was it?" It was.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That's great.
I've always wanted to hear the Romeo X Juliet dub. I haven't.
Yeah, I have. I have heard
it's really good.
Oh, really?
Because
I've heard it's actually better than the Japanese dub because it actually takes the Shakespearean stuff to heart.
Oh, that's right.
It actually uses it. It actually uses actually uses Shakespearean. The poetry, double onomatopoeia. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. It's like one fight to my stomach. Yeah, it uses that, and I studied Shakespeare for about half a semester in my theater class. It's very hard. Our assignment was to just find a monologue in any Shakespeare play and crack down that character to bits and perform it accurately. It was much harder than it seemed.
It's practically impossible. Actually, another good example of an amazing adaptation, just for the difficulty, is His and Her Circumstances, because there's a lot of scenes in that anime where later on, a line of dialogue from 5 episodes ago is flashed on screen.
Yeah.
So you have to translate that correctly in that thing, so that you're matching what's there, and you have to know what that line of dialogue is. It could just be I hate you. Well, when was that said? And you have to go bounce back all over the place. And actually, Crispin Freeman was the one who did the ADR on that. And he was saying it was just incredibly painful because it was just. I mean, it was great, but it was really, really hard to get that working. And it's tough.
The most annoying thing with dubs is when they get like a voice actor and then they don't just use him like that well. My favorite example, because I screened when I saw this, was Howl's Moving Castle, and the dub of it is very good. And there's like one or two characters. While I did like the Calcifer character in the dub, I think it was just a little bit weak towards the end. And because in the Japanese one, so the whole point of Calcifer is he's actually a very normal guy. He didn't sound like a demon. That was the joke about him.
Yeah.
He was just a guy, really. And so throughout all this film, there's Turnip Head. Everyone's favourite.
Yes.
And then at the end of the film, Turnip turns into a human, and here he comes! It's Crispin Freeman. Crispin Freeman, I have come. Now I must return and warn my people. He's gone. Never seen again. And I was just like, Freeman!
Yeah.
Why? Couldn't you have been Calcifer?
I know that was one of the frustrating things. Is that and I mean the problem with
Calcifer in that is every time Calcifer talked, I could just go Mike Wazowski.
I mean, one of the problems with Disney dubs is they will hire almost all Disney. I mean, although I will give them credit for the fact that they have put an anime voice actor in pretty much every Ghibli film.
Yes.
Lane is in one of the movies somewhere.
Ponyo though. I haven't seen one in Ponyo.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check. I think I saw someone in there. And of course, they're all spear carriers.
I think it was Ponyo's father who was it. I've heard that voice somewhere before, or at least it was a really
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson?
Yeah.
It was Ponyo's father was played by Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
I know because on my Ponyo review before I got deleted, as a joke at one point, I'm not kidding, I did one bit in which I said, and the voice acting's good in the English dub, and it always is. For example, the guy who plays Ponyo's father is, and suddenly there's a picture of Liam Neeson on fire while a guitar solo plays in the background, and I go, Liam Neeson! So that's the only voice actor I ever know on a film off by heart. Just because I made a joke shrine to him and put it in the video.
Actually, and this is not going to be popular, I really didn't like Liam Neeson's performance.
No, it wasn't great, I'll admit.
It was just
he underplayed the character way too much.
It was rather dull. It's one of the problems with getting these big actors is sometimes they just don't, they're not voice actors, which is
that was
fine.
The joke of it. He was the worst voice actor in the film, so why not highlight it by giving it a shrine?
There we go. Yeah. Amazing.
I'm gonna have to watch the Japanese dub then. I only watched the English dub in theaters, so
I haven't.
I'm gonna have to do that then.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I haven't heard the original Japanese version.
The Japanese dub, the guy who plays Ponyo's father, he's this really. There's almost this fun-loving sense to him. Like you sort of like, and yet towards the end when he sort of like what is very good is that when he starts, he's just very much a free spirit, and then as the end goes and he realizes he sort of has more responsibility, he then tones down. Whilst
nice.
Liam Neeson is just like, I'm Liam Neeson. Enjoy my voice. Hello.
That was actually my issue with the Nausicaa dub, is that, my gosh, I love Patrick Stewart, but in every role he ever plays, he always plays Patrick Stewart. And he's playing, I can't remember the character's name off the top of my head. And he fits the character, but I'm just like, okay, that's Picard. It was kind of disappointing that he didn't really, come across with the character for me. So did a fine job. It's one of those like,
Also, I always again with missed opportunities. There's one which always somehow I seem to get a gripe at, and Boom the Tigger just reminded me of it because I once made a bit of a joke about it. But basically, on the Elfin Line on the first episode, there's about a guy who has one line, and he goes, "Come on, guys, let's run in and flank," and he runs in and he just gets killed. Okay, immediately. Now, admittedly, Why didn't they just go, alright guys, let's do this?
Yeah.
That would have been perfect.
That could have been the greatest voice acting of all time.
It could have been. That could have just been legendary.
Getting Sony Vegas out now. I am so gonna edit that now. This needs to be seen.
Definitely. All right. Well, I think we've covered it. So I want to thank my guests. Thank you, Miniman, for joining us as always.
Whoop, whoop.
And thank you, Zan, as always as well.
Charm as always, Brent.
Very good. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next time for another episode of Otaku, where we will be covering more serious otaku topics. See you then.